Everyone knows about the Negro musician or singer. But here is an example of something that perhaps you haven't seen. Here in an operating room in one of New York's hospitals, a man's life is at stake. The surgeons are all Negroes. For many years now, Negro physicians and surgeons have practiced their profession in hospitals throughout our country. There is great variety in Negro life. We do all kinds of work. We certainly aren't all surgeons. In fact, many of us still do lowly jobs. Let's go out to the part of the country where I come from, the Midwest. Here, many Negroes own their own farms. This farm has been in the family for 3 generations. In this art center here in Manhattan, a well-known dancer teaches a class in modern techniques. Here is a journalist who works for one of the many Negro-owned newspapers. More and more Negroes are becoming salesmen. For instance, this man sells cars. Here's a nursemaid, a bank teller, a draftsman, a machinist, a welder, a diplomat. In a Park Avenue skyscraper, the vice president of a major corporation. To show you how many of us live, I'd like you to meet some friends of mine who live out in Brooklyn. This is Walter Beltrop. Sometimes on a Saturday night, if they can get a babysitter, Walter and I take our wives bowling. As you can imagine, Walter's a powerful bowler. He practically throws the ball down to the pin. Walter's wife, Wanda, used to be a secretary. Walter is a top-notch social worker. He works in a community center with young people. Tony's the oldest child. She already attends nursery school. She's 3 years old and has a great personality. This is Saturday morning. This is the morning that Walter always tries to help out around the house. Many American men like to do a little work around the house. Even I like to wash the dishes now and then. On this morning, Walter's going to help with the breakfast. His specialty is pancakes. Wanda thinks that Walter's pancakes are a little too crisp, but she tries to humor him. But Tony finds them very tasty. I'd like you to meet another family here in Brooklyn, the Smiths. Marvin Sr. is a parole officer. This is a very festive day, a very special day. Their 2 sons, aged 9 and 7, are excited as they await the arrival of the grandparents. Today is Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving dinner is one of the great American customs. It's a day when families get together. On this day, it just wouldn't be right without a turkey. It's been a long day for Mrs. Smith, who was expecting a 3rd child. Father says grace. This is the important thing about Thanksgiving. To give thanks for the blessings of the year.
To me, Thanksgiving is a day where you home, a home day. So you have a lovely home and then take somebody out to dinner on Thanksgiving Day. No, something missing.
In another part of town, at an old folks center, people of another generation are celebrating Thanksgiving too. This is Harlem. Harlem has always had the reputation of being a place of music, gaiety, and excitement. But to us, it has another meaning. Here, only Negroes live. How did this come about? The Negro was brought from Africa to be sold into slavery. A century ago, slavery was abolished, but a pattern of segregation took its place. Although there have been significant changes, we are still deprived in many instances of full rights and opportunities. For example, there are hospitals in which the surgeons we saw earlier are not allowed to practice. And in some states, we are still restricted by signs like these. Later in this film, we shall see some of the ways in which the situation is changing. But first, let us ask a cross-section of Negroes how segregation affects their lives.
Segregation to the average Negro means being held back. He's looking for progress. He wants to move forward in the American mainstream. Segregation holds him back.
I think it's something that's ridiculous. You take the white people in the South that, or not only in the South, anywhere, that refuses to allow a Negro man or a Negro woman to sit in a restaurant or to ride next to them in a bus or a train or anything, and then on the other hand turns around and wants a colored woman to come into their home and cook their food and serve them their dinner after having her hands all in their food. I think somebody's got to be crazy there.
Up to this present time, it hasn't affected me at all. As far as my work and my social activities, up until this present time, I can say it hasn't affected me.
In order to understand how any Negro feels under segregation, you have to realize that from the time of infancy, he has it pounded into him that he's not as good as other people. There are things he cannot do. Don't do this, you can't do this, you can't do the other. It builds into a man a feeling of inferiority, a feeling of frustration, a feeling of resentment.
There's so much bitterness built up in a person and resentment when you know that you're being segregated against simply because you're black and there's nothing that you can do about it. There is something you're trying to do about it. But
These students are typical of many throughout the country, both Negro and white, who have been effective in breaking the barriers of segregation. Sense the confidence and dedication of these young people as they discuss their plans.
Talking about was the possibility of spending your Christmas in jail. I think the most beautiful thing we could do would be to stage a mass sit-in or some type of demonstration. And if they did not serve us, to remain until they served us. If arrested, to go in jail and refuse bail. That's what I think will have a much larger impact than just mere arrest. I'd like to hear your comments on it and see exactly what you think and how you feel about it. Tommy?
We've been getting public sympathy, but not enough by just going in and coming out. And if we decide to stay 50 to the jail, then we'll do it.
How many people would actually feel committed enough right now that if it came to this, they would spend their time in jail over Christmas holidays?
Through the years, Negroes have always protested against segregation. But what you see here is an example of a new spirit